All right, so this week I am recording from my girlfriend's family's house's garage because I don't have anywhere great to do this video in the house, and I definitely still wanted to do it because I'm trying to build the habit of doing it each and every week, each and every main slate with basically 10 or more games. So I'm going to get into this real quick so I can go inside and eat more food. I'm going to run through it position by position. If you want a game-by-game breakdown and more detail into these matchups, please check out my Substack article, which is in the link for my channel, in my profile. And let's get started with the quarterback position. So Desmond Ridder, I like him. I think he's very safe here, but he is too expensive for the types of builds that I'm doing this week, and I will get into those builds as we go. Dillon Gabriel seems unlikely to play. Logan Bonner is in play as a passing stack option for Utah State, but I'm not really sure how much I'm getting there this week, mostly due to the prices on these players. Mikey Keene from UCF in a game that they can control pretty easily through the ground game. I don't think they need to be using him. Cameron Rising from Utah is much in the same boat, so I'm off of him. KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, once again, projects as a game that Arkansas can control through the ground game. I don't think they need to be using KJ Jefferson too much, as he's just a little pricey, I think, for what they might need out of him in this game. Holton Ahlers against Cincy, nope. None of these Texas quarterbacks interest me unless Casey Thompson and Hudson Carter out, in which you could probably just play Ben Ballard as a $4,500 minimum price play and just go with that and get what you get out of him. It's hard to know what you're going to get with a lot of these min-price guys. There is a guy on Saturday's slate that if he starts at min-price, he is an absolute lock, but I don't think this is the same kind of situation. That being said, we should know this is one of the earliest games on the slate, 9 a.m. start, my time, noon start Eastern, so yeah, you'll probably know. And you can decide what you want to do with Ben Ballard. I don't really have a great read on how good he is or anything. Doesn't project as a great matchup. Kansas State runs the lowest plays in the country on offense, so not a great pace, but whatever. He's $4,500. Just roll him out there, see what you get. Brock Purdy, same boat as a lot of these other quarterbacks that I just talked about, where their team projects to control the game. They probably won't need him. You know the rest. Probably just want to see the attempts that you need. Richardson from CMU, passed over him, but yeah, once again, team projects to be winning this game. I don't think they need him. Don't see the upside. Curtis Rourke, somewhat interesting to me. Ohio might blitz Bowling Green in this game, just absolutely boat race him. But if they don't, I think Rourke has pretty solid floor in this spot. He's been doing more in this offense than in last year's offense, where it was basically just all the run game. Rourke's been doing a little bit more here, so I don't mind him if you think this game stays somewhat competitive. I personally don't, but you can get to some Curtis Rourke. Ben Bryan from EMU is probably my favorite quarterback on this slate, and that is gross to say, but he has a pretty easy path to a high number of pass attempts here against a pretty bad CMU passing defense, and his stacking partners are pretty obvious in the receiver department. So I like Ben Bryan here for this price tag, and he makes a pretty good correlation play with the top running back on the slate, in my opinion, who I will touch on very soon. Max Duggan from TCU steps back into a starting role. Max has been super hot and cold this year. Great game against Oklahoma. Great games against SMU and Cal earlier this year, but those are some really, really bad defenses. And even against defenses like Texas Tech, which sucks. Texas sucks. Kansas sucks. WVU, not great. Kansas State, okay, well, they're pretty good. But a lot of these other defenses, like Duggan still is really not impressive this year. So I don't think I'm going to get to Duggan here. And then, Will Howard from Kansas State, somewhat interesting to me at 5,600. He projects to start this game. He probably doesn't pass the ball very often. He started week 3 when Thompson was out, only passed the ball 10 times, 7 of 10, 123 yards and a touchdown. But the real story is that he went 12 for 56 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So he does have really good upside for this price if he gets there through the rushing game. They'll probably just take the ball out of his hands as much as possible and just keep it on the ground with him and their running back, Deuce Vaughn. Other than that, there are no quarterbacks I'm interested in on this slate. Moving on to running back. We have Lou Nichols III at the top of the board. He's an absolute smash this week. Makes for a great bring back for the EMU stack that I like. You can just look at the numbers, honestly. I go through them in a little bit more depth in my article, but this is just such an obvious play. The only issue is the price tag, but if he goes for 40 plus DraftKings points again at $10,000, you might believe he was underpriced. I rank him ahead of Breece Hall this week. Hall is in a matchup that they can really easily control. I don't think TCU has the firepower to stay as close in this game as I think EMU does with CMU. And it's in those close competitive games that Hall has seen his carries really spike. And in some of these games where Iowa State just controls it, he only sees like 19 to 17 carries. They just slow it down so much. And, they don't need him to run a ton of times. And he probably scores 1 or 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 in this game. But even then, he hasn't been seeing the carry counts that you would need for him to post a 200-yard 3-touchdown game to really bury you if you fade him. So, obviously it's a great spot for him, but I just don't think he has the sort of volume role that people think he does. He gets a lot of volume, sure, but he doesn't see that kind of volume in games that Iowa State is crushing. Like the Texas game, 19 carries, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cool. That's great to see. The Kansas game, 17 carries, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also great to see. But if he only posts 30 points and Lou Nichols posts 45, you're in bad shape there, buddy, because you just paid $9,300 for a running back when the guy above him scored significantly more points. So I don't think I'm getting to Breece Hall that much this week. Deuce Vaughn has a little bit more intrigue to me than Hall, and I would put him behind Lou Nichols as well. Vaughn sees more carries in these games where they are winning and Skylar Thompson has been out. Vaughn ran 23 times against Nevada, his third most on the season. Typically he doesn't see over 15 to 20 carries. This is another guy where if the volume is there, he can go absolutely bonkers. He's typically very efficient. He sees some receiving game work, but I actually think his receiving game work, his role takes a hit with Howard at quarterback because Howard, they've shown that they just want to take the ball out of the air when he's the quarterback. They want to take the air out of the ball. They just want to have him run. So I think that he does have a pretty good role here, but it's tough to get there at 9,100. It's just tough when I think Lou Nichols is a better play. I can tell a better story with my lineup with him in it. So yeah, I lean Nichols there. Tyler Beatty, I'm not sure I get to this week. I would put him 4th out of these top 4 guys. The fantasy points per game is obviously huge, but in games that they've trailed, which I think they do here, okay, he ran over South Carolina, but South Carolina sucks. Vandy also sucks. Texas A&M, Georgia, those are tough matchups. He did decently well in those, all things considered. Good for him. North Texas, they also suck. He hasn't been posting these must-have scores against any really decent team. So, yeah, I'm just off Beatty this week. If it kills me, so be it. Tavion Thomas is probably my second or third favorite guy up here. He's kind of tied with Deuce Vaughn for me. In a matchup that Utah should win, he's been absolutely crushing in matchups that Utah is winning recently. And yeah, he'll probably see 20 to 25 carries. He'll probably have 150 yards. He'll maybe get 3 touchdowns. And you'd probably need to have him at $8,500 if that happens. So I like Tavion Thomas a lot in this spot. Jerome Ford, I don't think I'm getting to. His volume is much like Breece Hall's, where since he wins these games pretty comfortably, they don't need to run their stud running back into the ground. Brad Roberts from Air Force, in a game they project to be winning, he has a lot of carries, but his touchdown equity hasn't been too high. Air Force really spreads out who gets the touchdowns, so I don't love him. Keaton Mitchell, Charles Williams, bad matchups. Tyler Goodson, not a great matchup. The UCF running back situation is interesting. If Isaiah Bauer is confirmed good to go and should start, then I like him. If he is not, or even if he's iffy to play, he sounds very questionable to play right now. Actually, he was said to be available last week, but only in an emergency, it turned out after the game. So who knows what's going to go on there. Gus Malzahn doesn't sound confident that he plays. he said nothing has really changed from last week, so, and that he didn't practice earlier this week, so it's tough for me to like Bowser if I'm just like building lineups. So I like Johnny Richardson a lot at 5,900. USF just gives points up to everyone, and UCF has a really, really high total on this slate. So I like them quite a bit here. Johnny Richardson being my favorite out of this backfield. Demontre Tuggle at 6,000 is really interesting against Bowling Green. The main problem with Tuggle is that he just doesn't see the kind of carry counts that you would want. If he sees like 20 carries in this spot, he's an absolute smash. But he just hasn't been doing that. And yeah, like he can be really efficient, and he does have a big role on the goal line with a touchdown or more in 4 of his last 5 of his last 6 of his last 7, 6 of his last 7 games. And he does have 30-point upside. So don't get me wrong, he's definitely in play, but I wouldn't be surprised if he disappoints this week. That said, I think this is a really good matchup for him, and one that I think he can dominate at just 6K. That is really appealing. Besides these guys, the next guy I'm really looking at to play is Dominique Johnson from Arkansas. This is just a great spot. He's been the lead back lately. I really like his role in this team right now, and yeah, this is just a great matchup. The one thing I do want to say about Arkansas is that they have rotated running backs throughout the year, and a new guy seems to have emerged every couple of weeks. So there's a chance they go back to Treylon Smith, who opened the season as the starter, just given the matchup and given how they've used him in the past. So there's a chance that Treylon Smith gets all the work at 3,600, and that would be an absolute smash. But right now it looks to be Johnson, $4,700. I'm majorly in on that. Besides that, there's not too much I'm looking at the running back position. Nick Mosley from Bowling Green, an option at 3,800 if you need some savings. Bowling Green has basically trailed every game recently, and they've still just been running the ball because I don't think they trust their quarterback at all to do anything. So they're just going to run their offense. They're just going to run the ball, blah, blah, blah. Try not to get like super embarrassed. They're trying not to just throw picks, and yeah, they just want to try to control the ball a little bit and run some sort of functional offense, even if they're losing. So I get it. They're not going to win these games, though. They don't care. Nick Mosley saw 14 carries for 90 yards in last week's game where they were losing badly, and Terrion Stewart, before he left, saw 7 carries for 71 yards and a touchdown. Stewart also has a touchdown in 4 straight games, with 1 2-touchdown game against Buffalo. Even in games where Bowling Green basically sucks, gets blown out, their running backs are scoring touchdowns. And if Mosley is the guy at 3,800, I think you can do a lot worse in a matchup where they are at home. At least that counts for something, and they are facing a pretty bad rushing defense. I think there's a lot of merit to this play, and it's one that people aren't going to go to because it is gross. But I think if you get 15 to 20 points out of a $3,800 running back on this slate, you can pay up so many other places that have a lot of upside, and there's not much value on this slate that I particularly like. So if you can nail a value play like Nick Mosley, you're looking good. As far as receivers go, a lot of these just correspond with quarterbacks and passing game stacks that you're looking at. So Devin Tompkins with Logan Bonner makes a lot of sense. Treylon Burks with KJ Jefferson makes the most sense. Shakir, not in play for me. Just not someone I'm going to here. I don't think he has the upside that you're looking for. DeAndre Hughes from Air Force saw 23 carries, had like 200 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. I have no idea if that's going to happen again. This Air Force team, incredibly hard to predict, and one that I'm probably just not going to be attacking, especially at this price. Xavier Worthy from Texas in a pretty bad game environment. Not a spot I'm going to be going to. Khalil Pimpleton I really like as part of an EMU-CMU game stack. He sees a pretty big role and can get there even when Lou Nichols is going off. Xavier Hutchinson I don't like this much this week, just because the matchup doesn't project as one where they will need to be throwing a bunch. Ryan O'Keefe just gets there for UCF pretty much no matter the game script, game flow, whatever you want to call it. They just want to put up points probably in this spot and will do so against USF, who is bad. So O'Keefe I like a lot. He has a lot of touchdown equity, and the return of Jalen Robinson hasn't really dampened his targets. Alec Pierce is an easy fade for me. The guy in this Cincy offense that I would like the most is Trey Tucker, who's cheaper, but he's seen his targets spike in the last 2 weeks and been very productive with those targets. Hassan Beydoun is my favorite stacking partner with Ben Bryant at just $6,600. He sees so many targets when they are in negative game scripts. He's their main guy. They use him creatively. I just really like Beydoun a lot. Here, Charlie Kolar is a fade for me after 2 shootout games where he went off. But before that, especially in games that they were controlling, they don't need him that much. They just prefer to run the ball. None of these other guys are too interesting besides Tanner Knue at $5,700. I think he fits my stack really well with Bryan. Him or Dylan Drummond as my next 2 guys up. I think both have merit and are both pretty equal plays at their prices. And you can just kind of see what you can build with whoever you want to add as your secondary option behind Beydoun. I don't think I would leave Beydoun out of a stack. Like, of course you can, but I just don't think I would do it with the role that Beydoun is shown to have. Isaiah Cox is in play for Ohio, but really relies on touchdowns to get there, and he's priced up for his volume, so I'm not really getting there too much. Corey Sullivan stands out really as a fantasy point per game guy down here. He has a lot of touchdown equity. He scored in all but 1 game that he's played in this year. Not going to get the most targets on this team, probably going to be behind Pimpleton. Not going to see the most yardage in this offense either, but yeah, the touchdown equity is definitely there, and in a game with a pretty high total, I really like him at just $5,200. None of these other guys are super interesting. Quentin Johnston, if he plays, but yeah, it doesn't look great for him to play. So the only other guy on TCU that I like to some degree is Darius Davis, who really had a good game against Kansas. He even had a rushing touchdown, which doesn't seem particularly repeatable in a very tough matchup against Iowa State. But he had a pretty good receiving role, too, against Baylor and Kansas State. So I think he's in play at just $4,700. He's probably going to be the lead in this offense at receiver if Quentin Johnston is out, as I expect him to be. So, yeah, you can take a shot on Darius Davis. Don't hate it. Don't hate it one bit. Dallas Dixon from CMU has really seen his role decrease lately. If he scores, he could be an option. But, yeah, I mean, his bigger games came in weeks 5 and, weeks 2, 5, and 4. And those, if I am right, were weeks that Sullivan, 2, 5, 4. Okay, Sullivan was in those games. So yeah, there's merit to playing Dixon here too. I want to look at the target counts for Dallas Dixon real quick, because something tells me that I was looking at this earlier and he had not been seeing the targets I was looking for. Yeah, so I mean, those games he saw 12 and 13 targets, those weeks 4 and 5 games that he absolutely went bonkers. So he started the year with targets 9, 7, 6, 12, 13. Since then, 5, 4, 3, 1, 4, 3. That's just not going to do it. And Corey Sullivan has been out targeting him recently. Okay, so 3, 4, 1, 3, 4 for Dixon, right? If we go to Sullivan, 3, 9, 3, 8. So Sullivan has been seeing more consistent targets and has been more consistent in his touchdowns. Of course, it could spike for Dixon, and people are going to play Sullivan over Dixon. So there's merit to playing Dixon in this spot at a pretty cheap price. Besides that, not too much I'm liking at receiver in terms of value. Tyler Scott from Cincy had a good game last week. Gonna need a touchdown to get there for you. Yeah, just pretty ugly down here besides those guys. There's some merit to also playing Joel Wilson from CMU at just $3,800. Probably not a guy that's going to have a giant role this week, but could catch a touchdown. If he does, he's going to be a good value play. But yeah, his targets too, they are not high. His targets in the last few weeks... Let me look real quick. Yeah, so he's the tight end on this CMU team. Targets in the last 4 weeks: 3, 3, 4, 6, and then 4. So yeah, he's an option. He could catch a touchdown for a team with a pretty high total at $3,800. That's basically what you're playing him for. None of these guys are particularly better plays than the others, I don't think. None of them are going to get super chalky either. So besides that, I would only be really looking at $3,400. Tay Barber is an option, but it's not looking great. I'm pretty sure he played last week and didn't see the ball at all. He had 0 targets as far as I know. No catches, no yards. Even before that, just pretty minor role on this offense, especially in a really tough matchup. So that is actually all I've got for you this week. I'm going to be recording another video tomorrow and going over the Saturday main slate, finishing up that article tonight. So best of luck on this Friday slate. Sorry I got this out a little late, but it's a holiday week, so better late than never. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter. Shoot me a message on there if you like the video, if you want to talk about any plays, if you want my spreadsheet for the week, I'll give you that. I don't really care. I will share anything with you guys. So yeah, follow me on Twitter at mandrews93 DFS, and make sure you have a great rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. Happy holidays. Enjoy the football. Enjoy the family. Just have fun. Be good to each other. Have a good one.